Hello, Uganda. Welcome to the State of the Nation. My name is Henry SSALI for the African Alumni Association. Today, we are discussing a few events, political events that happened on Uganda's political landscape, including, but not limited, to the new cabinet that was recently unveiled, the spiking numbers of COVID-19, and of course, Museveni's insinuations that he's walking in the footsteps of Jesus Christ. Is he cousins with Jesus Christ? What are your thoughts? Today, I will ask you to join us by calling in if you have any questions. And you can call in using the WhatsApp number that is highlighted in the comment below. But before I start, I wish to acknowledge this land on which the University of Toronto African Alumni Association operates. For thousands of years, it has been the traditional land of the Huron-Wendat, the Seneca, and the Mississaugas of the Credit River. Today, this meeting place is still the home to many indigenous people from across the Turtle Island, and I am grateful to have the opportunity to work on this land. Again, welcome to the State of the Nation. My name is Henry SSALI. Ebiffa Mu Ggwanga. Tusanyuse okukulaba, twagala okumanya endowooza yo. Mwami Museveni olowooza wa Uganda ku Yesu Kristo. There are so many things that we are going to be interrogating today. And I hope you are as excited as I am to engage in this conversation. Before we start, I want to encourage all Ugandans who are still having trouble accepting that COVID is real. I want to encourage you to take the vaccinations if you have a chance to. COVID is real. People are dying. Abantu bafa. Bw'oba olina omukisa ogutwala eddagala by the way ligenda okuggwayo batugayo wasigadde emitwalo ng'ebiri. By now giyinza okuba nga gikidde eddala. There is a second lockdown for 42 days. Of course, a couple of days have already gone now. But if you have your loved ones, if you live in the diaspora and you have your loved ones back home, encourage them to take all the precautions that will manage to help them avoid getting COVID-19. Obulwadde buno gye buli. Mufube okulaba nga mwekuuma. Abazungu nalabye babagamba nti n'okwekomera kukyamu. Muleme gendera nnyo ku by'abazungu ebimu. Okwekomera tukukozesezza okumala ebbanga ddene nnyo. Si gwe gusoose. Kasita okikola obulungi, it is effective, it works. Mwekomere to keep your lungs free from mucus. Nkitegeera munywe nnyo ebintu ebyokya on a regular basis. Mukozese emicungwa, mugezeko okulya obulungi as well. Nkitegeera. Bw'oba olina access to medication, take it. Take it. It's important. Of course, as the Ministry of Health has already revealed, the medication is quickly depleting in Uganda's medical ecosystem. So, if you have access to the medication, take it. It works. Even when you get sick with COVID-19, if you have taken the medication, it's not going to be severe. I have so many people that I know that have passed on due to COVID-19. Last night, I lost one of my judges due to COVID-19. I have friends and relatives who are right now battling COVID-19. This thing is real. Take care of yourselves. And with that, I'm going to invite my colleague, George Wilobo, to join me today as we discuss the affairs of the state of the nation. Ebiffa Mu Ggwanga, Mwami Wilobo wabirabye. We do have a new cabinet. Of course, it's subject to discussion. And I'm excited to have you here today. I hope you are as excited as I am to engage in this conversation.
Yeah, definitely. Thanks a lot. Thanks our viewers and listeners out there. And it's been very interesting back home. And
First introduce yourself.
Yes. My name is George Wilobo, and I'm here to represent the voice of the voiceless.
Yeah, of course.
And also to analyze here and there the things that are making news and taking shape of conversations back home.
Yeah.
So
one of our other colleagues will be joining us hopefully in about an hour. If he does manage to join us, Mr. Julius Mitala. He has been on a vacation, sort of a vacation, so he's just returning to town. If he's not as tired as he has indicated, he will be joining us in an hour. But in the meantime, we are going to have this conversation with my colleague George. So
yes.
What's going on? We do have a new cabinet, of course, as you have already learned.
Yeah.
There were some disappointments from people who have worked so hard, but there are also some surprises, incredible surprises. And I think these were to be expected in some way or another. Of course, some of them were not to be expected. Of course, surprises like Nabanja wasn't really expected, but there's also more than just Nabanja. There's the new vice president, for example. I want to learn more about the new vice president. I hope you have some insights. And we know that the vice president is not always very active, but hopefully she will be more active than the previous vice president. Why don't we start with my friend Honorable Nsereko and Chiwanda? I want you to comment on their conversation here.
Fuluma wabula mwami Chiwanda kyenjagala nzo okubuulira oye mwami Museveni ne bw'onojja n'omusiiga ekizigo yagga talina mukwano gwe abasigadde mu muyambako kuweereza empeera yo yeeyo wasiga bijanjaalo toyinza kungula ffene kuki kyekyo kyennyini ne bw'onoobuuza kuki nti akwanukudde gwe national vice chairperson noge mazima ne bw'onoomusiiga akazigo anti wulira kati kankulage nti ba national vice chairpersons b'ebitundu okusinziira ku seeke kwe muli baweerebbwa enkizo n'okusoosowazibwa ate kati nkubuulira nti bw'otunuulira mwami Chiwanda
bannamba nnyabo
n'omulimu gw'abadde asiibako wano ne bannamba nnyabwe asiiga akazigo wallahi oyo ye Museveni bw'afaanana bw'atyo ne bw'onooseka ne bw'onaamwenya yeyo empeera gy'akusasudde ate gwe kino tosobola kyogera anti wulire yakuwa gwe wawagira olanya n'osuulawo Nsereko golowooza ekyo kyali kitono lindako katono okubanga wali chairman wa Buganda caucus nga Nsereko yeesimbyewo kubwa deputy speaker mu kisanja kiri n'owuba fulaga y'olanya golowooza lwaki Museveni yali takusasula kaakati yali akwebaza ki
kati oba lyanno
kaakati
toteekwa kumusiiga nziro olw'okuba tanonze
mwami Museveni nze mwebaza simusiiga nziro nti bano bakiwanda bakomerere banyige bayige nti bw'ogenda nga yogera amazima nga bwe wallahi nkubuulira omusajja ne bw'onoomusiiga ekizigo n'okimumetta yo yakulazeeko ku kikyali
Mr. Chiwanda obviously was one of the people who are very disappointed. This is a gentleman who has been praising Mr. Museveni. Of course, he's the vice president for NRM representing Buganda region. He is the former chairman, Buganda caucus in the 9th parliament. And he is the former minister of tourism. Someone who introduced the Miskavi Uganda. Miskavi Uganda introduced also introduced the, what is it called? Chikomando.
The Rolex.
The Rolex. There you go. The Rolex. Do you think? Of course, there were so many people within Buganda who are dropped, including Nachiinji, Betty Kamia. But we also have new entrants like Okitiba Sebugwao. What are your thoughts on this new cabinet? And specifically, both on who is disappointed, but also those who seem to be in now?
In a nutshell, actually, if you look at the entire cabinet, there is a misnomer in terms of like the list. First of all, the way it came out as though we have increased the number of cabinet ministers and also an inclusion. There is that a very fundamental mistake that Mr. President Museveni did, and openly, unconstitutionally, the inclusion of NRM leadership into that cabinet was very wrong, based on the fact that it's like showing us that the NRM leadership is part of the cabinet, which is really very it's very questionable. But looking at the disappointments and the appointments that were made, I think there are people that really stood out in terms of their appointments. But there is also the question of we need to understand why and how President Museveni operates, and how he gets into the part of appointing some of these ministers. First of all, we need to agree that there is an aspect of a cynical power play in appointments of the cabinet ministers. There is also the loyalty game that is, of course, overwhelmingly visible, and then there is also the ultimate lobbying, and then there is also this the generational factor. So you look at all those things together and analyze them in terms of getting into President Museveni's mind while appointing some of those people. Then you have the historical values that President Museveni wants to keep. And then you also have the religious value, religious balance. Then you have the regional balances. Then you have the election rewards. So all that, when you look at all those things encompassed together, it makes up that list that we are seeing as cabinet. Because if you look at the historicals, you look at people like Moses Ali, the Muruli Mukasas. Now, all those are people who are part of the NRM from the NRA times up to date, so they cannot be left out. However, of course, some people who are historicals were left out, like Eli Tumwine, but you see him bouncing back into the advisory part of cabinet. Although it is also a tactic that he has lost a little bit of taste of words these days, whereby he just speaks in a way that is he has vulgarized most of the positions that he holds by speaking carelessly and recklessly, which is very dangerous. Most of the times you've heard him talking, and then he gets back, and then maybe his handler says, "Oh, what you said was not really correct and right," and then he comes back and then apologizes for them. Then you'll also have people who who are there just for regional balances, but also because of the fact that the Buganda and the central region, particularly this time round, was a very big disappointment to President Museveni, and so it was really going to be difficult for the central region to really dominate in terms of even the position that has always come from central, which is the vice president's office. This time round, the disappointment is visibly seen in his appointments, in that particular office appointment. So that's how now the loopholes come in to be able to, and remember also that President Museveni right now at this moment requires people that are docile in political docilities, people who are completely, they are not ambitious. They do not show any kind of warmth in terms of political arena. So those are the kind of people that, but most importantly, that what stands out in this cabinet appointments is how President Museveni comes up with a cabinet that is almost 60% women. Now, we may call it women empowerment and all these other things, but let's get into President Museveni's mind for a second to analyze. You'll see situations where he at his age, President Museveni do not want people that will give him hard times in terms of discussions, in terms of defiance of what he wants. He needs people who are loyalists, people who will bow down and say, yes, Muzei. Now that word alone is very keen and very, it's bowing down to him, and then making him the king of everything that he does. And women, of course, give him that ultimate respect and ultimate control of everything that he does. So in most cases, this is why people like the Rebecca Kadaga, who are extremely, we would expect, of course, Rebecca Kadaga to be at the forefront of the cabinet. But now we are seeing Rebecca Kadaga will be reporting to Nabanja. Nobody ever expected that. But if we went into President Museveni's mind at the time, right, we would see that Rebecca Kadaga grew some form of wings, in terms of political ambition, in terms of political strength, in terms of popularity, in terms of and gaining popularity within, cutting across, including into the opposition arena. So meaning that her wings rather had become so huge and so big that they needed to be trimmed off. So there was no any other way other than making sure that she gets into the backbench of the cabinet. If she was to come up, if President Museveni wanted to create a stronger cabinet and say Rebecca Kadaga is the prime minister today, I think there would be a big threat to his succession plans, because Rebecca Kadaga would have gained the biggest political office that would be like a step away from the presidency. Now, it is something that is calculatively, that's what he even mentions, that he did that underground. He did not consult so many people, but of course, whatever that he came out with was ultimately to solve some of his fears and to also answer some of his ambitions, and most importantly, to create a completely new faces into the political scene. Right. For example, if you look at also the aspect of how because remember, most of the international community has been very critical about President Museveni's leadership, and you know very well that there are sanctions against unknown individuals. Yes. Unknown individuals in the cabinet and in the government itself. Now, what would you do if you were President Museveni and you are faced with such such a dilemma where you do not know who is on that list.
Yeah.
Now, so people who are extremely outspoken, like the guy that our friend that you've just Mr. Nsereko was
Mr.
trying
Nsereko,
to.
yes.
So now those are people who are extremely vocal and in support of some of the injustices that were going on at the time.
Right.
Now you would not expect, and remember, he is the Minister of Tourism for that matter. Now those are people that would need to travel a lot.
Yeah, Chiwanda was the Minister of Tourism, but
exactly
he has no position now other than being Vice President of Buganda region.
Yes, but remember that as a state minister for tourism, he has the privileges to travel a lot.
Yes.
Now, as with that regard, it will be very embarrassing to President Museveni for Chiwanda to go to the American embassy and they tell him that, look, you have been denied a visa to America. So the best option is to change the face and change the entire person that will be manning that area, that would be out of that particular. Look at all these other areas of security circle.
Right.
There is an overhaul of the entire specific offices and ministers to specifically create a new face of governance, a new face of leadership, so that in terms of lobbying, if they are to lobby in the international arena, it will be very, very easy. Known that, okay, what did you do to so and so when they did this injustice to the people? He will be very comfortably telling them, look, I removed them from the positions that they hold.
Right. You mentioned earlier that given his fragile age, Mr. Museveni wants a smooth term.
Transition. Yeah.
A smooth term. I don't know if he's thinking about transition yet, given his previous actions. But at least we know that he needs a smooth term.
Yes.
And you have given that as the rationale for including more women in cabinet.
Yeah.
Although he seems to have demoted the former speaker, Rebecca Kadaga, to first deputy prime minister, and making her report to the person that she once dismissed as incompetent to lead a ministry. She now has to report to her because she's the prime minister, the right honorable prime minister Nabanja. Do you think Mr. Museveni is scared of Rebecca Kadaga?
I don't want to say that he is scared. President Museveni reads into the minds of the future of somebody politically, and President Museveni does not underestimate people, which is very unlikely that most of the opposition leaders that we have in Uganda underestimate President Museveni. But in a nutshell, where President Museveni has reached, he does not give a chance to a simple molehill to become a mountain. So if he gave Rebecca Kadaga too much, because the defiance right on SEC alone was an indicator, and some of the defiances that they had within her reign, towards the end of her reign, also multiplied some of the fears that Museveni had. Much as I want to believe that Rebecca Kadaga is extremely influential in terms of in terms of Museveni's government, especially from the eastern part of Uganda, the entire Busoga region, it would be a political liability to try to drop her or take her or to embarrass her with a complete denial of a political office. Now, what they would do is to make sure that it's an alternative. Remember that this is the first time President Museveni's cabinet leaked more than 3 times. And you would see that there's been a lot of changes. There has been a lot of different names coming back, and then different name, another name comes up. So many things have been happening underground, and if you also noticed that Rebecca Kadaga played it cool until she also got that particular position, and I would not think that she was consulted.
Right.
But also, it would be extremely embarrassing to President Museveni if Rebecca Kadaga today rejected that offer. And also, Rebecca Kadaga, being Rebecca Kadaga's mind for a moment, and look at yourself as Rebecca Kadaga and dress in the mind of leadership, the mind of power, because remember, she has also she has held power for so long, and so she's having this this fear of losing power.
Do you think Rebecca Kadaga has the guts to turn down his boss?
I would not underestimate her. She's very intelligent. She's very popular. She, especially at the international scene, right. And given any political position that can catapult her into the presidency, I would not deny that she has the capacity.
How about people have been saying that Museveni's response by appointing more women this time around in cabinet is a direct response to Kadaga's claim that women had been disenfranchised within Uganda's political affairs. Would that be a true assessment of Museveni's response or Museveni's appointment?
I think that is just an excuse. It's a shortcut to his reasons. Of course, he has to put all his other reasons under cover, right. and front that as the main reason. But also, I didn't complete the other point where I mentioned that we would, if you were President Yoweri Museveni, you would not underestimate Rebecca Kadaga, based on the fact that if you were Rebecca Kadaga as well, you will sit back in your living room and sit for a moment and imagine the young man that you welcomed into parliament few years later is coming up to front to really stand against President Yoweri Museveni and gets the highest votes and gets changes the entire political status quo of Uganda.
Yeah.
So if you sit back and say, now, what her strength that can make her get her into that kind of momentum? So you would really look at President Museveni's appointments as very tactful,
right.
but also geared towards securing the future of his presidency.
You are repeating one of his slogans, because his slogan was securing your future. Securing,
yeah.
But this future has already been challenged by turmoil. 2 weeks ago, we almost had a near assassination of a general and former commander of Army Forces, CDF, commander of, what is that? Commander, CDF, Defense Forces.
Chieftaincy of Defense Forces.
Yeah, Chieftaincy of Defense Forces, General Katumba Wamala. We almost lost him. And as you can see in this video, it says that he doesn't know the motives of the people who actually wanted to take his life.
It's difficult. I can't tell what their motive was. But all in all, of course, we lost 2 innocent lives. My daughter, very innocent girl, 34 years, and my driver. These are innocent citizens who were lost in that gruesome murder. But I hope that one day, one time, these people will be found. I want to give thanks to, first of all, as I said, the medical team here, Medplan, for how they received me and how they have handled me all the time. I give thanks to the Malcolm X team, which stabilized me from the scene of crime. And I also want to thank the border boy, the guy who volunteered to take me to the hospital, because he even reached the level of saying, if you don't jump on it, I'll force you to get on the border. So I want to thank him.
He seems to display some kind of humility here, especially in thanking the border guy who persuaded him to get on the bike so that he could be taken to hospital. General Katumba Wamala was recently reappointed into the ministry that he has been serving in. He hasn't turned down that appointment. Do you think that General Katumba Wamala is comfortable, is still very comfortable working with General Yoweri Museveni? And is he safe?
I think we had these conversations last week, but
well,
to be honest,
I want you to respond in regards to his reappointment as minister. Yeah,
so his reappointment comes at a wake of because I also believe that his attempt, the assassination attempt, also created some hesitancy in terms of having the list of cabinet ministers out, but also it changed quite a number of situations in appointments as well. I want to believe that. But going back to his appointments, I also think that he was doing a great job and he was doing very well. And based on, it's the first time that if you look at President Museveni's responses all this time while after the assassination attempt on Katumba, he has been very vocal and very pursuant into the situation. In fact, he's even giving clues. He's giving information about the investigations, which prints some kind of picture to us to imagine that there is a unique relationship or a unique kind of way President Museveni looks at Katumba, and it's against that determined his coming back. And also I want to believe that his contribution or his work at that ministry of works was really very huge and very evident in terms of the action plans and actions that, yes, the productivity and also the things that he has done. He has really changed quite a lot of things, and he's trying to strive towards making certain things right. Because remember that Ministry of Works takes the largest chunk of Uganda's budget.
Yeah.
So it's no wonder that there can be anything. But I believe that being a 4-star general, he can really manage. But if he has gone to defense or Ministry of Works, he has reappointed as in the Ministry of Works or defense, right?
The Minister of Works. Minister of
yes.
Works.
Yeah. So I believe that everyone, in fact, the first list that came out that leaked, he was in the Ministry of Defense, in defense.
Right.
And this, you can see the kind of switch that took place after the attempt. Right. So I really think that he's Mr. Museveni believes in him so much that he again gave him that responsibility.
Yeah. So there's insinuations that the Right Honorable Prime Minister Nabanja is incompetent to be in that position, even though she was appointed to become pretty much the coordinator of government affairs. In other words, all ministers should be reporting to her, and she's going to be overlooking all the ministries in that capacity as Prime Minister. In justifying her appointment, Mr. Museveni equated his leadership prowess to that of Jesus Christ, and this is what he had to say.
Jesus when he started his movement, there were intellectuals. They were called Pharisees, highly educated people. There were other people called Sadducees. There were others called Levites. These were all, I don't know, I would ask the Archbishop to help us with describing to us those highly educated people. But Jesus went for the fishermen. Jesus did not recruit Pharisees. He did not recruit Levites. He did not recruit the other one, Sadducees. He went for Simon Peter. And he went for the other ones. Of course, he had also some intellectuals, because I'm told that Luke was a doctor. So please, when you look at my list, know that I'm in the path of Jesus Christ.
Do you think Mr. Museveni is cousins with Jesus Christ?
Well, that is far-fetched, but
that's a rhetorical question. But as we navigate this conversation, of course, Nabanja is one of the cadres that is has been committed, even though sometimes she has been frustrated by how she has been treated. She's a boots on the ground person, of course, for the NRM. She's been a very committed mobilizer. Even though in 2016 she was very disappointed in how things were going. Do you think she's one of the? And before you answer this question, I'm going to play another video. Do you think these are some of the payments, the rewards for being a good NRM cadre? And if so, why didn't it work for Mr. Chiwanda?
That's why I support Museveni with all my heart, because he's a listener, he's a patient man.
Are you sure, Nabanja? Let me remind you of your own statements on this regime.
For us, we are in pain. Kibale people have not benefited from this government.
That is one. Two,
I have worked for NRM as an RDC, as a mobilizer, and in many capacities. But my people have not benefited.
What are you going to do to the president?
There is nothing we can do about him. The only thing we can do is to wait until 2016.
What will happen in 2016?
We have been voting 99%.
And in 2016?
This time I think they will struggle. It is not easy. People have now opened their eyes, they know.
Honorable Nabanja, you are the NRM Parliamentary Caucus Treasurer, and you are uttering these statements?
If my people are suffering, so you want me to be here and, and eat chips and chicken when my people are struggling? I can't.
And therefore?
She doesn't want to eat chips and chicken anymore. Do you think that was a worthy reward? If it's indeed a reward, I don't know if it's a reward.
Well, over time, President Museveni has always played the reward card for a very long time. But the appointment of Nabanja was the big shocker for the entire, the entire political atmosphere of President Museveni's regime. I mean, this government of 2021-2026.
Right.
It's one of the biggest shock appointments, and even himself, he acknowledges it. And I believe,
and I think that's why he referenced Jesus Christ and the fisherman parable. Because when you think about that portfolio that has been occupied by people with Dr. Nsibambi's caliber, Prime Minister Mama Mbabazi's caliber, Dr. Ankana Rugunda's caliber, and then Rugunda is replaced all of a sudden with Nabanja. What was he thinking?
Yeah, first of all, I don't want to make the commonest analysis that most people are making, but I want to think that the appointment. Look at Rugunda. Why would Museveni want Rugunda to be on his side for special duties, like an envoy for special duties?
Right.
It means that it goes back to the international community aspect.
Right.
Mr. Rugunda is a diplomat in nature. So, being a diplomat, President Museveni needs people that will do the lobbying, backdoor lobbying for him. And that's why you see, even this time round, people that have tainted names like the Kutesas have been dropped. Now, reason being, President Museveni needs to mend his international appeal, his international image that was damaged in the just concluded elections.
Right.
Now, having Rugunda on the special duties and an envoy for that matter,
special duties, yeah.
It speaks volume to what President Museveni is trying to create that our political analysts may not see. Very clearly.
Is Rugunda the de facto president of Uganda? Is he the one going to be representing Uganda in all international arenas?
In other words, he would be a representative, an international representative, because remember that there will be so many things that in case if there was no COVID and we were at normalcy, there were going to be a lot of situations where President Museveni would go into a country and there would be a protest. Now, if you have a special envoy like in the names of Rugunda with a very undercover politeness that he has and humbleness and down, is this kind of diplomat that you do not hear so much about. He's not outspoken. He does not have a lot of injustices that his names are written on.
Very
so you as President Museveni, you need such a clean person to do the international lobbying and international representation. Take for instance, if today President Museveni was called into North America, for example, the opposition stronghold in the diaspora is enormous, and they are capable of doing anything, of embarrassing President George Museveni so heavily,
as they did during Kadaga's visit to Canada.
Exactly. So if you are smart like he did, he would do. He made the best. Whoever may not see this, but he did something that is really very polishing for him in terms of appointing him to represent him on special duties, because those meetings, those high-profile meetings, are the special duties that we are talking about. Lobbying. Now, in that regard, also, you have a person of Rugunda working as the backdoor prime minister still.
Right.
With that same position they have appointed the Rugunda into, you have Nabanja, who is a ceremonial, I would want to say a ceremonial prime minister, but the actual duty prime minister would be Rugunda. And I would not be surprised when in Nabanja's reign of her prime minister, there will be a lot of meetings and a lot of back end-to-end kind of meetings that they will, of course, have with the Rugunda, and there will be a lot of things that, yes, that will be happening in the back end, at the back door. But also the appointments of Nabanja would also reflect to the common person, and as I told you that there are two sections of Museveni's appointments. There is the loyalty that plays the biggest role in his appointments in terms of he always appoints loyalty to instead of competence.
Right.
And then you have the election reward, because in politics there is the value, being a political asset in President Museveni's government is how many voters did you bring into the play? What contribution did you have? I mean, did you bring on board?
Right. Yeah, and in that case, why don't we step back and go back to the issue of Museveni's exaltation to Jesus' stature, and also his action towards Buganda.
Tutuuse n'okuba akabonero nga tusaba nti ku linnya lya Museveni n'erya Jeneti n'erya Mwozi simanyi naani Amina oyo olaba abo bamayinja abantu baffe ab'opposition baatutwalidde ng'ayita mu kaminisita ako gwe kulonze oli ambasada buli muyimbi gwe tufunza ne tutwala ne tumulayiza Kiwanda yamutwala gwe kulonze oli ambasada w'okuyimba gwe kakati Kiwanda jangu eno jangu empewe tufuuwe owulidde ate nze ŋŋenda ne ŋŋamba abavubuka mwenaalemu mulimu traffic jam gwe omuvubuka ogyegattako kabanda olivuga ddi sebo bakulabe traffic jam ali maaso tagenda maaso kati traffic jam nebeera emabega wano saabavubuka ekigudde ku Kiwanda kibayigirize tonna oba ku aviation authority somewhere bajja kufunirayo obwa commissioner
akyali namba 4.
Mr. Chiwanda still boasts about being the number 4 in NRA, but does that matter to Ugandans?
I don't think it matters, because I wanted to go back to the Nabanja situation. I finish it up because I wrap it up. Because if you look at Uganda right now, really does not need the politicians in suits.
Right.
Right. If you replace the capacity of a prime minister with person of Nabanja, who is looked at as the people-centered person,
right, common person.
It makes a common person relate very quickly and say, you see, they have appointed this person. This person cares so much about us than the other people that are in suits and speak very serious jargons of English, and they do not relate so well with the poor people and the common man. But if you have Nabanja, and I really want to strongly believe that Nabanja would in fact do the best that no any other prime minister has done. Only that President George Museveni actually vulgarized. Okay, he might have not vulgarized, but for lack of better words, he watered Nabanja's appointment by referring the statement of the fishermen and all these other things. It makes people confirm their doubts in Nabanja and their hesitancy to really believe that she can deliver. In actual sense, people like that end up even tripling the efforts that no one expected, especially when it comes to people ridiculing you and doubting your capacity and competency to handle the office. They would do whatever it takes to prove everybody wrong in terms of service delivery and in terms of even superseding what the expectations of the people. When we go back to the relevancy of Chiwanda's disappointment, I feel that there is a lot that meets the eye in terms of understanding Museveni's political agenda. Mr. Chiwanda comes from the central region, and it goes back to the point that I was making, that being a political asset in President Museveni's government, you must have brought in votes. That is a political asset. Now, in central region, where Chiwanda hails from and where he's strongly rooted, including in the Buganda kingdom, we all know what the outcome of the elections against Museveni. So it would not be a surprise then for Chiwanda to lose his seat in terms of appointments. And remember that being a representative and a strong leader within the central region where people are extremely urbanized, it is very, very difficult to actually even try to convince or try to change the narratives of the people already that is known, because it is actually a disadvantage to him, because he has been the pivot of vocalism. He has been used as the drum of NRM, and he has been overstepping even where he is not supposed to. And most of these leadership roles and leadership positions that they give to these people, they tend to customize it and they own them.
Right.
Now, not knowing that this is an office, it's a position, it's a temporary position, and there is life beyond this position, and there will be somebody else that will be in that position. So they tend to customize and make themselves so comfortable to the extent that they insult, they vulgarize, and make so many excuses, and including justifying the injustifiable. And then that of course goes a long way in terms of hurting people's feelings.
Right,
so,
right.
And especially when you are vocal in a time when most Ugandans are grieving, when most Ugandans are hurting, it's very, very hard for people to really sympathize with you when you lose such a political position. But instead, some of them have to jubilate.
Yeah. Let us talk about COVID-19.
Yes.
A little bit away from the politics, but still because everything is managed, everything is political pretty much. So while COVID is more health or medical, it's also driven a lot by politics. Uganda appeared in international news last week, because of the spiking numbers of COVID-19. In fact, as I speak right now, last night I lost my jaja or grandpa due to COVID, but I'm not the only one. Many of my friends have lost their loved ones, brothers, sisters, parents, relatives of different kinds due to COVID-19 in Uganda. Of course, there's still some sort of hesitancy for certain medications, and the United Health Organization recently dismissed one of the remedies, the traditional remedies that Ugandans have been using to protect themselves, especially in the absence of medication. Before you actually come into comment on how politicians should respond, specifically in this case, because we have seen how the government has responded. We have seen their strategic planning. We don't know how effective it has been. Of course, if it was effective, most of the people would be vaccinated. But now we also heard that government, even with some little money, cannot access medication. But first,
Kampala's main stadium, now a temporary hospital for COVID patients. The Ugandan government says this makeshift treatment center is only for mild to moderate cases. But CNN witnessed a body being carted away. Last week, the World Health Organization says cases here were up 137%, the second straight week of triple-digit spike in infections. Across town, 40-year-old Stephen Tambi was finally well enough to be taken off a ventilator just hours before we arrived.
Now that I have a second chance, people shouldn't play with their lives recklessly when it comes to COVID. The way I feel now, I feel like God has given me 1,000 more years.
It's all hands on deck at this hospital. The ICU has been over capacity for the last 2 weeks, even after adding 50% more beds. They keep turning away new patients who need critical care.
I believe we had a bed, but then we got emergencies and we may have used up the bed.
But the calls keep coming. How many similar calls have you had today?
I don't know. I could say over 15 calls just since morning.
Every patient in this wing of this small private hospital is on life support. It's also taking a strain on the staff, some of whom have had to do 24-hour shifts because the need is far greater than the medical professionals available. The average age of the patients is 40, doctors tell us. The youngest was only 18.
Why exactly are we seeing young people? One is that for sure it's a more aggressive strain. But the other thing also could be that, you know, after the first wave, we might have gotten quite excited enough to slacken on, on our preventive measures.
It's a crisis that could have been avoided, says Uganda's top health official.
If we got this vaccine at the end of last wave, our community would be much better than what we are experiencing now.
Considering you have only vaccinated 2% of the Ugandan population, when will you have enough people vaccinated that life can return to normal here?
I cannot answer that because I'm not in charge of, I cannot access the vaccines. If I could access the vaccines, even tomorrow would conduct a nationwide campaign and vaccinate.
With almost all Ugandans unvaccinated, the government warns that each positive person could infect between 80 to 100 people. Uganda has strict social distancing guidelines, but it's business as usual here in downtown Kampala. People have to be here to make a living. It's impossible to work from home. But they may have little choice for the next 6 weeks, as Uganda is now in partial lockdown again. Larry Medowo, CNN, Kampala.
Right. So that's the story in Kampala, but that's not all. There's more.
Global COVID cases have fallen for a 6th straight week, but in Africa, the World Health Organization is reporting a stunning 25% spike, with particularly severe outbreaks in both Uganda and Zambia. This comes as African countries struggle to vaccinate their populations. CNN's Larry Medowo has more.
Zain, Uganda is one of those African countries where they have seen triple-digit increases in COVID-19 cases. In the last week, cases were up 137%, according to the World Health Organization. And I have seen firsthand the impact of this disease. It's affecting younger people in the population this time, people in their 20s and their 30s. I'm at a small private hospital in Kampala where their ICU is completely full. They added 4 extra beds. Those were taken up, and they keep getting calls that they cannot satisfy. And this is a problem across the country. Public hospitals are overwhelmed. Oxygen is in short supply. And the government is saying if they had enough vaccines, they would not be here. The second wave would not be so critical.
We live in a world of inequalities, and we are seeing this also in the vaccine distribution because all lives matter, regardless of where you are in Africa or in developed countries. And it was sad that the countries that would support and would really come to the rescue of the developing countries, they chose to hoard the vaccines, and now they are saying, you know, we rather go for the children even when they are less vulnerable. It is very sad, and that's what I can say, but it's not fair to us. Even when we have ordered, it has not been easy to secure those vaccines.
Dr. Diana Atwine is the top health official in Uganda. I asked her when she expects the adult population will be fully vaccinated, and the simple answer is she doesn't know. She says if I had vaccines, we would get them in the arms of as many people as possible, but they don't have them because of shortages globally, partly because of the problem in India, which supplies a lot of the vaccines to COVAX, this global alliance to supply vaccines to countries like Uganda. And that means there might be a 3rd wave or a 4th wave here, some doctors are telling me. And I have been in the last 10 days, Zain, in 4 African countries. And in every one of them, people are tired of lockdowns. They're starting to go back to their lives. For many day laborers, if they don't show up at the market, if they don't show up at the bus station, they don't have an income. So that might be part of the reason why you're seeing cases increasing in South Africa, in Zambia, in lots of African countries, because people can't be in lockdown forever or they don't have an income. Zain.
Global COVID cases have fallen.
Sorry about that. What are your thoughts on this? When people do not show up to work, they have nothing to offer their families. What should people do?
Yeah, it's a reality of situations in Africa in general perspective. Our people, our economies are so minimal that we live on a daily activities that we do, and it's out of these daily activities that we feed our families, that some of us grow to this stage. But I want to get back to the fact that some of the people that are in charge of the plan work, the architectures of planning for our country, really does contribute to a very big, like they're creating a lot of surge in our countries, because
Right.
when you plan very well, certain situations can be handled in a much better way than how we are seeing them, because COVID has been here for a while.
Right.
We are getting into the almost 2 years now. So that was the first outbreak, the first time where the government, of course, received quite enormous amounts of monies that would have curbed and created certain situations that this one would have found. Now, I want to imagine that at the time that COVID came, they had made good plan work, that they had created some shelters, they had created some mobile clinics. I mean, makeshift holding centers for some of these critical and mild situations. But all that was not done. Today, we are looking at situations where hospitals are jammed up, and they're just creating a makeshift in Nambole. But what happened at the time when, in fact, the system at Nambole would have already been created at the other time, and this particular wave would have just, yes, this particular wave would just, will just create the utilization of that particular facility.
Yeah.
But here we are looking at, imagine this is happening in the urban centers. Now, what do you think is happening in the village facilities?
Where there's no infrastructure as well. Plus, they're
Exactly.
sending people back to the villages. So people are going
Exactly.
to leave the urban centers with perhaps the infections and take them to the villages where
And
there are no infrastructures.
That's even worse for the fact that right now, Uganda, I speak with a lot of passion because I have so many people that of my relatives that are really sick, and my father is struggling for his life.
Right.
But imagine if it wasn't for the capacity that we have to be able to pay for some of the enormous expensive costs that are attached to to keeping him in that hospital in the referral center in Soroti, it would mean that this person would have died by now. It's something that really touches hearts, whereby you have a government that is giving out the vaccines for free, but the testing is 200,000 shillings. Now, some families in Uganda, in villages, cannot even have 200 shillings in 3 or 6 months. Where do you expect a family to really have 200 shillings? I mean, 200,000 shillings to do a testing? And even if they are to test, the test results is coming back after 4, 5 a week. Now, it speaks into the mismanagement, the poor planning. If there is anything that the government has to do, is to start with making the testing free and universal, so that there will be a clear track record of who is infected, and they are aware to isolate and do any other preventive measures. You cannot
put that in perspective. 200,000 Uganda shillings is about 72 Canadian dollars.
Exactly. That's a lot of money for a family that lives on $1 per day.
Yes.
So Now, when you take back into the SOPs that the Ministry of Health is pounding money into, these SOPs do not work if they are not able to come out as a government to regulate the costs of some of the PPEs. For example, if you go deep in, like, I'm talking about people that really live outside the urban areas, including the urban areas right now, I was reliably told a pack of masks, 10 masks costs 8,000 shillings. That's about, that's how much? That's about $4.
Yeah.
Now, it's extremely expensive for just a person to have a protective mask. That's why there is this video that is running, that's making rounds in the social media, where people are recycling nose masks.
And they're recycling them in a very
poor sanitary situation. So
yes.
you're calling out for people to sanitize SOP as an SOP, but the cost of sanitizer, I was told just a liter of sanitizer is almost 30,000 shillings.
Right.
Now imagine a family of about 8 people. How much sanitizer do you think they need? How much do you think they need in terms of nose masks, whereby it's disposable? How much of that, how has the government helped the people to come and regulate some of these essential SOP requirements? How has the government come out to regulate the cost of mere water, for example? There are areas in Kampala today, as we speak right now, the entire Chadondo area and is completely out of water. How do you expect people to really be sanitized, cleaning and washing their hands, if national water is not able to come out as a relief, a COVID relief, to speak into the at least lessening the cost of water? There are so many essentials that are in Uganda to fight COVID-19, but the government has not come out to help the people to fight COVID. People are trying, but the situations are not allowing them. If somebody sits back home and stays home and even when they are sick, they are going to go and work, but the situation compels them to work, because if they do not work, the children will starve. Now, the situation of having all the children that were held at school going back, it needed also plan work, because you don't just wake up and say, okay, the schools are closed today and people are getting into panic mode. There should have been a very systematic mode of transporting the kids or the children from schools, and they do not create this mayhem whereby all the children that were infected maybe in schools and those that were in the population that are also infected mingled within the bus stations and struggling to board buses, and now they contracted, in that mayhem, they contracted the virus, and now the virus has moved with them to the innocent lives of our elderly people that are in the villages. Now, these are the most vulnerable people in the entire population. They are poor. They do not have access to good health care. They do not have any kind of sanitary knowledge that they are used to, that everything is strange and new to them. So you are bringing the disease into these people. Now, there will be another phase where most of these people yes. As I was still saying, that there are situations that has been created out of poor planning methods of the government, because entirely COVID-19 is manageable and people can live with COVID-19. However, situation has compelled people to actually defy certain SOPs based on the helplessness that they have. Now, in situations like this where the surge is overwhelming, where out of 10 tests, 80% is positive. There is coming a time where everybody will test is going to test positive. Why? Because the infection rates are not very high, and there is no known variance. There is no known positives. People are positive and they're in the population. They cannot afford the cost of testing, and they are living with the people that are not positive. So they end up infecting each other within the families. Even when you tell people to stay at home, they are already sick and they are contracting the virus just within themselves. And now, because Ugandans, this is also a fact that can be looked up for. Most of our people, we are naturally strong. Our immune system is naturally strong. To grow up to the age of 20, 25, 30, 40, 50 in Uganda is a very tedious task. It's a full-time job.
It is
now, a child that grows up to defeat polio, to defeat diarrhea, to defeat measles, to defeat cholera, to defeat all those war of disease. In fact, President Museveni called it a pathogenic economy. Now, you have a population that has resisted diseases for so long. So the immune system is built to resist disease. Now, that's why at least we can see that the surge is, there is not too much death. But even still, there is a lot of way too much death that is allowable. Just because of the poor management of that.
Earlier on, you talked about the recycling of masks. There's this video that has been going around of someone who is trying to recycle using the wrong methods of recycling. Yeah, anyway.
Yes, so if you look at that, on top of this, there are people that, like, I will give a typical example of my own father, where these people are actually dying out of depression. Some of them are extremely depressed to the extent that our elder people, some of them had never fallen sick to that extent before. Right. Yeah. Some of them are going to hospital for the first time
in their lives.
In their lives, they're receiving a lot of injections, and they are also deserted. Have you ever been there? You're sick and very vulnerable, and you have hope in the people around you, your family, but your family cannot visit you. Because they're scared of contracting the virus. And even if they are to visit you, they do not want to, they cannot have contact. They cannot speak to you face to face. There is a lot that is compacted in COVID-19 that makes someone mentally disturbed.
Right.
And another phase that we are going to have of people, some of these people that are going to at least escape the virus situation, especially the elderly, is the mental challenge.
Mental health.
Because it's extremely, extremely depressing to them. Where you would expect your daughters, your sons, your grandsons to be with you, to give you that hope,
comfort,
of survival and comfort. Instead, everyone is locked out. You cannot travel beyond Masaka. You cannot travel beyond. So even if today you are in Kampala and your father is sick in the village, you cannot even travel to see them. More or less, even if they die, you cannot even bury them. Now, the situation is so appalling that we are in a situation where the government must make sacrifices. if you asked me that what should the government do, actually starting with our so-called politicians, there are situations we are in an emergency situation. Of course, if there is a lockdown, that's an emergency situation. If the country has been put on a state of emergency, it means that there should be sacrifices, there should be adjustments, including with the just concluded red budget.
Yeah.
If they are saying if the budget that goes into let's say infrastructure, let's say Ministry of Works, is this trillion, why don't we take from that money and say, look, we have a situation. We cannot build roads on when people have died. We cannot. The MPs are going to. They're about to receive 300 million each for a brand new car. Why can't they, the representatives of the people, sacrifice and say, look, based on the situation that is at hand, we have foregone the monies. Each MP has released 300 million. If we put that money together times the number of MPs that we have, over 500, that is a lot of money that can bring the testing of each individual in Uganda for free. It can buy PCR test reagents to actually make free tests for each Ugandan. But what are our MPs and leaders doing? They are only lamenting. There is no actionable words. There is a repetition of SOP. But actually, my brother Henry, if you look at the SOP itself, the SOP comes with a very stringent requirement to a common Ugandan. The SOP, the standard operating procedure that they sing about, is only affordable to the few Ugandans that are maybe urbanized, even in the urban areas, but they have the money to be able to manage that. Where will a common Ugandan afford get money to afford just an N95 nose mask?
Yeah.
It's extremely expensive.
Yeah.
Should
we look at if the government has failed us, should we be looking at the opposition politicians to intervene and come up with strategies on how to approach the COVID pandemic in Uganda?
To be honest with you, this is why I always, in most of the political discussions that I've always had, I've always made it clear that people should never trust a person that has come into a political arena and calls himself a politician. They need the people at the time of elections. But right now, at a time of emergency like this, where the people want to see their government work, the people want to see their representatives at work. You cannot keep singing to people on radios and all these other media platforms and stations that keep SOPs only without tangibly, everything is locked down, without tangibly actually getting into the root causes and the root, the problem at hand. Because the problem at hand is actually not being unable to keep the SOP, but being able to afford the SOP itself. You'll have a Ugandan that is wearing one mask for over 2 weeks. How effective is that SOP, for example?
Yeah.
It's not effective at all. It cannot fight COVID-19. It cannot. Even when you say they should wash hands, but how can a Ugandan wash hands with no money to buy soap or detergents to wash, to bathe and to make? They come out with a lot of contacts. Now, if you get all these trillions of monies and dollars that they are putting into certain sectors that may not be used at the time, we are in a time of crisis. You can scrap and trim from certain sectors and say, we are handling this money, and each Ugandan going forward for the next 3 months, all countries has had at least a COVID relief plan, whereby each Ugandan, whether they come from whether they are from which political affiliation, or whether at least each Ugandan can have 100,000 shillings in the next, every month for the next 2 months. I want to believe that Uganda is wealthy enough to afford to give each Ugandan out of the 40 million people, at least each families in Uganda are about maybe 25 million families. So if each family receives at least a token of 100,000 every month, just to have specifications of relieving them from the burdens of COVID-19, it would clearly show that their government is caring for them. It will clearly show that the government is working for them. If the MPs, for example, these leaders of opposition speak, and they speak very loudly in the TV stations, provoking and claiming that Museveni is not pro-people, why don't they show us the example of pro-people by coming out to say, you know what, we are going to we are releasing, we as the leaders in opposition, all the MPs in opposition are going to forego the money that is going to be released for the cars, the 300 million.
Yes, now, I think what is important right now is for them to come up with an alternative strategic approach.
Exactly.
To managing COVID-19.
But to be honest with you, Mr. Henry,
seem to be quiet, and they seem to be looking at the government that they wanted to host for solutions. They need to offer us solutions. Well, what solutions do they have? What would they have done if they were the ones in government? That's what we need to see. Perhaps it is going to help the government in power, however illegitimate it might be, to rethink their strategy and apply their alternative approach to managing COVID-19. Why aren't they coming up with an alternative approach?
In fact, you see, Mr. Henry, it's about how politicians play the political game. Right now, nobody is seen in the arena. They're basking. The heads are in the sand. The heads are all in the sand. And they will always come out to lament about government failures. But the example would start with them, to come out to speak about certain things and create a momentum among the population, and the population will say, oh, look, these are people that are with us. Because it does not make sense when an individual in the name of Hamis comes out with 530 million shillings
35.
to help.
535?
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's a lot of money from an individual businessman. Now, what about our representatives? Now,
and I think opposition leaders actually matter, because I remember in the days when the Ugandan government used to imprison people for not paying the graduated tax. Mr. Kano Besigye came up with an alternative, and he promised to scrap the graduated tax, which eventually was picked up by Mr. Museveni's government, and it was eventually scrapped completely. So I think opposition leaders, opposition politicians have the capacity to influence what government does, even from outside of government. So we are still waiting for that alternative pathway, strategic plan or approach to minimizing the COVID scourge in Uganda.
In situations and in reality of Ugandan politics, it's very sad to see our leaders only lamenting. They get to the media and go to all these platforms to only lament, but they do not provide alternatives. Time and time again, we've seen political leaders only in the corridors of parliament, after the discussions of parliamentary discussions and all this other policy making. They are the first to come out to criticize the policy that they themselves in fact passed. But on the floor of parliament itself, that the same people were not seen arguing whatever they're arguing on the floor of parliament. There are very few that do that. But it is very, very difficult to trust some of our leaders, because some of these situations that we've reached as a country, it is attributed to poor planning. And I also want to believe that the president is sometimes misled. Certain decisions are really, really poorly handled and poorly managed and actually poorly planned. And if you have if you have a planning committee, I would think that there is a point of entry, a point of engagement of all the stakeholders, because you cannot just, because when you just
do you think Mr. Museveni listens to counsel?
Now that he has a very serious I don't want to criticize the feminism in the cabinet and in the leadership around him, but it is very, very dangerous in terms of acquiring and accepting good counsel and realistic information, because some of the people around him are not able to face him in the eye and say this is wrong.
Right.
So who are you to really to deny or to insinuate that the president is wrong? So there is that fear that is created of, because
right.
This is the only president that advises the advisors.
Right.
So you have people that are in positions of power to counsel and to guide the president according to what is on the ground or as a reality, but instead they come as post-mortem figures. Look at what Nakalema did. I don't want to even applaud her for that, because it is out of the mishandling, poor planning. Because what did they expect? Did they expect Uganda is like a family that you just come out and say tomorrow you are not going out, you are going to the village to your grandfather, and then off you will leave? Everyone, Uganda has a big chunk of population of students, of people that cannot afford life in Kampala for the next 40 days, 42 days that is of the lockdown. So
Right.
They must be able to go back to their roots, to where they can afford, where they know they have crops and the farms that they can access food at no cost. Now you have students that study in Mbarara, but they come from Soroti.
Right.
You have students that must cross very many districts to make it to their roots. Now you're giving these students 3 days to travel. There is no accurate plan work or expectation of the surge of the number of people that will be struggling to go back to their villages and their homes.
Right.
Even when you lock down, you just need to know that there is a lot of people's lives that is at stake. There are those that survive on a daily activities of Kampala,
Right.
and with a lockdown in place, they cannot make a living.
Yeah, we have a hand-to-mouth economy, and most people do know this. I don't know how they could overlook that fact, especially for people living in Kampala, because most people who live in Kampala do not have they do not engage in subsistence farming.
Exactly.
So they can't really feed their families unless they go to work and buy that food in the markets.
So it's something that our leaders, if really truly they value the lives of Ugandans, this is a high time that the Ugandans would want to see their government reaching out to them, not just in the name of waiting for the vaccination, but there is this relief that can come along as they still have the capacity, the strength to wait for the vaccine to reach out to them.
Right.
Now, if you have a charge on a testing and you're not charging vaccination, it is very confusing. It's very unfair. Very unfair. Instead, make it universal to test. Then we shall know out of Uganda currently is having this number, this family has tested, is positive, you're positive, so make sure all of you quarantine. The person who is positive, make sure you don't get along with these people. So everyone will be able to know, I am sick, I must quarantine myself to protect those that are not sick.
Right.
So there is no way people are going to create a social distance where when they are at home, it is not easy, whether you like it or not. There is no way you're going to tell them to have masks full time when they are in their homes. But if one person is sick, especially like now the students that went back from home, there are a number of students that left school when they had already contracted the disease. And you see, the disease, the virus takes about 14 days to mature in the body and to start showing the symptoms. Now, all these people will inoculate. In actual sense, they would have already transferred the virus to the rest of the population in their homestead, and the virus will be inoculating in their bodies until when they manifest. So we are going to have a very serious surge henceforth, because there is that surge of people that contracted it at the time of the lockdown. Now, when we count again 14 days, on top of the number that is already surging, there will be a very big wave again.
Right.
Which may even lead to a total lockdown.
Especially given the traffic jam that was engaged in when people were leaving, going back to the villages. You could see the buses, people were not were not following the SOPs, but the buses were heavily packed to head back to the villages. When we count 14 days from that, the number is likely going to surge spike from what we already have. The conversation about COVID-19 is very, very touching, but it's not going to end now or in this conversation. There's another hot topic that I wanted us to touch on as we conclude this conversation, and this is the topic regarding Museveni's rhetoric in regard to the Milo land, or the owners of Milo land, which is a system, a land ownership system within the Buganda region or Buganda kingdom, or what most people have now started calling central region of Uganda. Mr. Museveni has been very clear on this. He says that Milo land is a bad system, but even other areas have had people complaining. Other areas where Milo land, the Milo land tenure is not applied, have had complaints about land grabbing done by the government, orchestrated by the government. What do you think we should do to ensure that people feel comfortable regarding their land, and that their land is not taken for granted or stolen by people who'd self-interested people, in other words?
Yeah, Henry, it's from the pre-colonial times, Uganda has had quite a number of progress in terms of land management, and this whole Milo land came from that time. But the demarcations and the authorizations and the offers that were given to, especially like the Buganda kingdom and the groups of people, and as a reward from the British colony, actually created a very big issue in a long run. Now, these are like now the resultant things, the resultant factors.
Yeah, before you go into details of this, I think you're bringing the context to you are laying out a great picture in giving us the context from
Yeah.
from the colonial days. But Milo land is a tenuous system that is practiced in Buganda. Most people actually argue that the land in Buganda would have been completely finished by now if we did not have that system in Uganda. And there are people in other areas of Uganda that have been complaining. For example, I'm going to play an audio here from one of the representative of the people from another part of Uganda. So listen to this.
Hello out there. My name is Gilbert Olanya, the Member of Parliament to Black South in Amuru District. Your Excellency the President and the Prime Minister of the Republic of Uganda, we heard with shock the kind of decision that we came up with about the community who are living peacefully in their land in Apa. You decided that the people of Apa must evacuate their land. You decided that the community who are living in Apa, those ones with national identity card registered between 2013 and 2014, be given 10 million Uganda shillings, 20 iron seeds, and 20 bags of cement. Those ones without national identity card be given only 2 million Uganda shillings. Your Excellency, I would like to observe the following. The decision that you came up with, I would like to say, is very poor decision, so primitive, very barbaric, with ill intention. Your Excellency, this is the clear indication that you don't like the community of Acholi. This is the clear intention that the land in Apa is not wanted by the Jumani community. It's not for Uganda Wildlife Authority, but for you as the president and your children, for your personal selfish interest. You really wanted that land very many years ago. How it comes that you decide to evict people on 42 square kilometers? No wonder you connive, you work together with General Moses Ali and gave that land to an investor called Bruce Martin, who comes from South Africa. Right now, you are showing us that you are really so greedy. What you mind most is about the investor, about someone who is giving you money as the president. You are not caring about the suffering community who are in Apa. You are looking at the community in Apa like dogs, like animals, like people who are not worth to be living on earth. But not Your Excellency. On earth, everyone is equal. Anyone born by a woman, the time will come when the person will die. All of us are mortal. There is no one who is immortal on earth. Therefore, if I were you, by now I would be making friendship with all the tribes, because your time is gaining. You are now more than 75 years of age. Your time is gaining. You are left with very few years to live on earth. Why do you want to leave the legacy that the Acholi community shall remember you as being the worst president who grew up our land, as being the worst president who used never to like the Acholi community? Your Excellency, the decision you have taken is really very poor. Is not worth of you as the head of state. My advice to you is that you have to withdraw this particular decision, because we are not going to allow any of the community of Apa to be evicted. From now onwards, as one of the leaders in Acholi sub-region, we are going back to the villages. We are going back mobilizing our community. We shall never allow our people to be evicted like dogs. I know you have guns, you have money, you have everything. Not the day you will come to evict our people, organize your guns ready, and kill the 25,000 population of people. Bury them and take their land. We shall not allow them to be taken like dogs, dumped on the street, start looking for land somewhere else, as if the Almighty God did not give them the land of a power. I really feel, Your Excellency, this is the kind of decision that you have made it yourself. You have shown to us your true character, and we have no option. I call upon the Acholi community, wherever you are, come to the rescue. This is the time we need to write the history of Acholi. Let it be recorded clearly that the Acholi people rebelled, that the Acholi people defended their land, that the Acholi people died because of protecting their land. This is what we need and how we need it to be done. But to take our land freely in such a useless manner, I think we shall not allow that to take place. Think, reason, understand it, and you do whatever you wish. After all, you are in charge. You have everything. You can even arrest me. You can even kill me. You can even imprison me. You can even poison me. You can do anything. You have all those powers. But no, the Almighty God is watching at you. The day the Almighty God will get tired, you will see, you will regret. Please, Your Excellency, the President, be very careful, be very serious, and take the rightful decision for the betterment of our people. God bless you.
This is a strong message. It has a lot of allegations or facts, I don't know. But there's a lot of implications in this message. There are warnings. There's a call for action for the people of actually to come and defend their land. There's a warning to Mr. Museveni. And this is not the only message that has been sent to Mr. Museveni's government regarding land. The Kabaka of Buganda himself recently said this.
Yensonga yettaka. Wano mu Buganda enkolagana y'ab'ebibanja ne bannannyini ttaka teriiko buzibu. Naye ebigenda mu maaso ennaku zino bituleetera okunakuwala. Tetwagala ba bibanja kunyigiriza nnannyini ttaka wadde nnannyini ttaka okunyigiriza ab'ebibanja, naye okubeerawo n'enkolagana ennuŋŋamu nga bwe kyabeeranga edda. Abataputa obulala n'okuvumirira enteekateeka eno tebaagaliza Buganda tebaagaliza Buganda bulungi n'enkulaakulana y'eggwanga.
Does Mr. Museveni want to undermine the land tenure, the Milo land tenure, because he wants to take it by force, the same way he did in Apa?
I think before making all that that assessment, I think we need to first understand the background of that certain, like particularly that Apa land. What I know about that land is that there are two communities. Actually, they have become more than two communities now that are in contestation of that same land. And one community settled because they were evicted from the national park. Now that is Nwoya and then Ajumani. But then there is also Amuru, Nwoya, because Nwoya is a new district now. So there is a way Ugandan, the communities of that side, their land tenure is different from actually all other areas of Uganda. For example, in those areas, it is the clan that own land. It is not an individual that owns land. And even if you want to buy land, you must provide like beyond reasonable doubt that you need to sell land. And it is the elders, the clan elders that sit. There is a committee in the clan that sits to allow you, to give you permission to sell your inherited land from your father. So the system there is extremely strong, that they can fight anything, any kind of situation, like they see those aggressive situations of compensating the communities as a way of trying to take away their land and depriving their children, grandchildren, and great grandchildren rights to land, because these are these are communal land, and they are like this is land that is supposed to stay for generations. Now, when you have, this is what most of parts of Kayunga is going like that. Now, some of land topic is a very contentious issue. It's a very serious topic of discussion, and it has a lot of people, individual interests, as well as government interest as well. But when we look back, when you go back, first of all, to the land history itself, it gives us a very serious situation which we are going to face in the next generation, in our generation to come, because currently the value of land has shot like 5 times.
Yeah.
The spike in the value of land is extreme, making land so valuable that even the individuals that must protect us from our own land, you've had implications of LOCs, right from LOC ones, colluding with the person that is grabbing land. The government itself, the government officials having interest from the interest of the investor. Because when the investor is brought to President Museveni or to the government, and they ask, what do you want? We want land. Okay, so you need land. Then the next is where can we get land for this very good investor? So they will be like, okay, there is in Woya, I think there is some land that these people are making concessions on. So let us buy them out. So in that system where people, where maybe Buganda kingdom has managed to own their land through the Kabaka and kingship, it cannot happen in Acholi, for example, because in Acholi it is communal, and the resistance is also communal. It is not from a group or from a subsection or from a kingdom like Buganda. So it is a very serious situation that may call for because I've seen bloodshed in those areas.
Right.
You've seen, but also some of these politicians also, I do not want to water down what the allegations and all the things that I think that was Olanya.
Yeah.
Yes, whatever that he was mentioning directly to President Museveni. But I also want to draw your attention and the attention of our viewers and listeners that some of these politicians also use the need of the people as a stone to strike.
Right.
Because I have witnessed where there was a time when I think Soroti University was going to be constructed. This is a government university, and they had selected. They had made a survey of where the road was going to pass, and then the communities were, of course, collected for a meeting, and most of them accepted the road because it's a development in their area. So voluntarily, some of them agreed and they were compensated, but the grievance, like people that needed more money, refused and sided with the politicians. So what did they do? They brought the politicians went in as an opportunity to express their political grievances as well, and they were actually asked to undress the women. The women undressed And when they did that investigation, they showed some of the actions were politically motivated. Some of those women we saw in the clips were called out, and then they were interviewed and given testimony. This is for public record. They gave testimony of influence peddling from some of these political leaders. However, there is an underlying factor, and also, in fact, the underlying discussions and negotiations that is between some communities. Some communities are refusing, some communities are accepting. Just as you can understand, Mr. Henry, that when you are negotiating and the majority is accepting, the negotiator takes the upper hand to know to assume that everybody has agreed.
Yeah.
And I think it was wrong maybe for the president to move very fast to that regard. I do not have the whole truth about the upper land, the upper, it's called upper land, but the whole it speaks about the entire land issue in the whole country.
Yeah.
Where people with the power, people with money, financial strength and financial resources, and people of authority, including people that you would expect to be the advocates or the mouthpiece of the poor, taking part in grabbing land.
Yeah.
In actual sense, the rich will always come and buy out from the poor forcefully, even when the person they do not want to sell. But as long as they have seen the potential and to achieve what they want, they will always take out in Mubende, for example. You've seen some of these land wrangles come about where people notice that, oh, there is gold in this particular land.
Right.
There are minerals, there is value. This land is very valuable. So they go ahead to even change documentation and buy it behind the curtains. And then before you know it, all of you are squatters, even in your land that your grandfather was born. So in situations like that, people that orchestrate some of these situations are actually the rich and the wealthy and the powerful people in politics, where they believe that owning these chunks of land is actually to their advantage. But some things are really for the world, for the earth. You can never take it anywhere. However, I want to note this in my submission, that the land ownership in Uganda is actually going to become even worse with the current situation where a piece of land they are now selling in just simple basic decimals. Now that is dangerous, because now what will your son, your daughter, or your grandson, how much will your grandson buy land at this rate? Meaning that those that accumulate more wealth will always go and buy out the poor, and the poor will always be squatters in their own lands. It also means that the land may, if the government changes in a long run, the land may have to come back into the hands of the government and into the hands of the kings, and just as the British did in 1900 by returning the land and giving back to the kingdom of the Buganda. So that is how land may get managed again. Otherwise, there is no way the individual ownership of land will always create tensions and the grabbing of land unnecessarily.
Yeah.
So for that matter, it's something that is even way beyond, like way behind, like it's not yet even, it has not yet erupted so heavily. Whatever that is happening right now is happening behind the curtain, behind the scenes. But time is coming when this government gets out of the way, the real and the actual truth about land grabbing will surface, because some of these people will now want their properties back. They are no longer in positions of power. So you must get out by hook or crook. and it is going to become like a gold mine, because land right now, everyone that makes money wants to own land. Everyone that gets money wants to at least own properties, and that's where they want to hide their wealth. So land has become a money pass.
What does that speak to the people who want to invest in Uganda, whether they are Ugandans in the diaspora or just people from the diaspora who are strictly investors who want to invest in Uganda? When they hear this conversation regarding the fragility of land, how comfortable should they be in thinking about investing in Uganda?
Actually,
and if you can comment and wrap up.
Yeah, so if you look at the situation in Uganda, it's more to do with how people have made the governance so cheap to the investors, where they even, it's just as easy as having somebody to take you to have a handshake with the President Yoweri Museveni. So when you have a handshake with the president, because the president is the power is on top of the anthill, and he just points and then the investor moves. It is so wrong the way the governance of our country is, to the extent that it cuts across all sectors and areas of life, because land is not seclusive. It's part of the normalcy in Uganda. So where people bribe themselves to the president because he has the power and authority to do certain things, the same people end up making the president to hurt the same people that he's supposed to serve. Now, it also happens that most of the investors in Uganda no longer care about the lives of the people, because I have seen in the Western world where just an investor or a company or an organization is accused of hurting people or human rights abuses, and they will come out to either apologize, they will either come out to take down, or they'll come out to actually denounce most of their actions. But in our country, most of our investors are mafias. They simply come up to mint the resources and to mint whatever that the government has to offer. But also remember, let's not forget that some of these investments and investors are like also rewards, rewards for relationships, international relations, and to feel sweet in the eye of the international scene, and creating allies. Because if the Chinese come to say Uganda for investments, and then President Museveni says no, what would he do if he wants to have, let's say, a loan from the Bank of China? Or so some of these things are just they are just plasters that are placed on wounds that are already rotting. So it's a system that creates all these aspects of situations. But when you look at the investors themselves, the investors may be to blame, but it is our system to be blamed for not accepting to work for the people of Uganda.
So as you wrap up this conversation, your final thoughts. What should Ugandans do regarding, especially the two main events, that regarding their land, but also the more urgent issue about COVID-19? How should our people behave? How should we take care of ourselves to ensure that more lives aren't lost in the absence of political intervention?
Actually, I cannot even talk about that before because it's entangled. Our society is entangled into politics. So even when you're to say, okay, people, let's do this, let's follow the SOPs. But how do you follow the SOPs when people cannot even afford the requirements of the SOPs? So it still goes to the system. It goes to the politicians, the leaders we have in power. Now, for me, what I can say to the government and to the people that are our representatives, for example, I gave you a clear example that if today all the MPs gave out 300 million of their cars that is meant to be for their cars and to help to at least eradicate the problem of testing costs, how many people would be tested in Uganda? It would be so much. So I would call upon the government to clearly streamline the requirements of their SOPs. Much as a lot of money is going into SOPs, just the media advertisement of SOPs takes a lot of money.
I'm going to interrupt you a little bit. I'm sorry about that. But as you wrap up, why have we normalized the notion of government buying cars for MPs? We don't see that in the US. We don't see that in Canada. We don't see that in the UK. Why does the Ugandan government buy cars for their MPs?
The simple answer is greed. It's greed. Because look at it this way. If really our members of parliament, our leaders really care about the people, they would come out to reject that. How difficult would it be to pass a motion to actually neutralize that? To neutralize the notion that the government has to purchase every election year, there will be a purchase of cars. What happened to the previous ones that were bought for those that were in office? Because those offices some of them are constant and consistent. So what happened to them? So it is just greed, and people no longer care about those that they claim to represent. It's a fallacy. Politics is a fallacy, and most people would die for the people they support, but those that were supported cannot die for the person that supported. It's a very big confusing situation where our people cannot really distinguish between service and a disservice of greed. So people are just having situations where they can only listen to what the politician want them to hear, but they are not able to accept the realities that are embedded in those in the words of the politician. So for me, my words would be to fellow Ugandans is to make sure that you keep yourself safe, but most especially safe and safeguard the people around you. Safeguard yourself for your family, for yourself, and for your country, because the country will not be empty without you. Your life matters, and I call upon our leaders to do better.
Our leaders must do better. Those are not my words. Those are the words of our analyst today, Mr. George Wilobo. I call upon all Ugandans in Uganda to take care of themselves in spite of the government's weaknesses. Your lives matter, and the responsibility is upon you to ensure that you are safe if you must see tomorrow. For other people who have lost their loved ones, especially here in Toronto, we do have a Zoom vigil tonight. It starts at 8 p.m. I call upon each and every one of you who has lost their loved ones due to COVID-19 to come and attend this community vigil. If you cannot attend it, please send us the names of your loved ones, and we shall celebrate their lives by reading out their names and commemorating them. Look out for the Zoom information on most of the WhatsApp groups. We would love to see each and every one of you. We want you to come and join us in this major and first commemoration of people's lives. Thank you so much for joining us here today. Thank you so much for your dedication. This is the State of the Nation. My name is Henry SSALI for the African Alumni Association. Ebiffa Mu Ggwanga, I'll welcome you. Thank you so much. Have a great Sunday. And Chitalo